And we have a number of our staff here for the Park District work here at this great facility that you're in. We're really here to welcome Commissioner Scott Britton, who also is a former village trustee, but also a great friend of the Bianchi Park District, and we're pleased to host you and your guests. So, welcome.
So, I always tell my staff, I wasn't concerned that it will be my staff meeting these things, and then I see a crowd like this, and I feel like maybe we're actually cutting through some of the noise in our country right now, and really appreciating the importance of environmental issues, and places like this. One of the gems of Glenview, which I was somewhat involved in when I was a trustee here, in getting it up and running, and now it's being run by the Park District, which is a phenomenal park district within our state. So I am Cook County Commissioner Scott Britton. I also serve as in the same role as a Forest Preserve Commissioner, one of my favorite parts. Now over 70,000 acres of green space. I think we should give up a round of applause. And it's also really cool for me to be at the Kent Fuller Air Station Parade, because Kent Fuller is here. We're here really to talk about both environmental issues and the things that we're doing within the Forest Reserve and in our Department of Environment and Sustainability. So I'm going to start with just really quickly recognizing a few of the elected officials we have joining us, so bear with me. We have a couple. I got to get to the right page. And yes, Adam and I decided to coordinate our shirts today. All right, so welcome to Bob Israel, trustee of the Village of Northbrook. You can save your applause to the end. Constance Consoulis, the board member of the Malec Park District. Debbie Romerdog, the village trustee of Winco. Gail Eisenberg, supervisor, Northfield Township. Newchurch Township. Mixed up. Heather Ross, I think, was on the list, but she didn't becoming trustee of the Village of Northbrook. We've got both Patrick Brennan and Phil Crowley and Kate, Kate, who's the administrator of Kenworth, Northfield, Winnetka. Rob Dearborn, the president of the Village of Winnetka. Welcome. All that way you had to come. Let's see. And if I missed any guys, let's give a round of applause for those who serve us every day. So one thing that I've done in my service, and now this is coming on my 25th year as a public official, as an elected official, school board here at Glenview, and then village board, and now becoming commissioner. I've always pointed out that there are many things in our country that determine how you get along in life, and a lot of that is related to your zip code. It relates to your health care, to many of the services you receive, and unfortunately, sometimes it relates to your health as it relates. Because a lot of the things that are going on environmentally in various parts of the country are very different than in other areas, and that's why we're trying to determine through our Cook County Department of Environment and Sustainability and our Forest Reserve system to try to make it as equitable, as balanced, and as safe as we possibly can for everyone. Because of that, we have two of the really exceptional leaders we have within the county and the Forest Reserve. We're going to present to you a little bit about what's going on. We'll take some questions and also do a little presentation of some of the questions we've already received before the event began. So, I first want to introduce, before I do that, yes, we have a bit of a crisis with the federal government. I was personally sued by the federal administration. That's a lot of fun. And I can tell you that we're working as best we can to reduce the impact of a lot of the grants that we're no longer receiving. The great news in the Forest Reserve in particular is because of all of you in passing the referendum a few years ago, we have the resources to keep this Forest Reserve running and to maintain the level of service that you come to expect from our Forest Reserves. And the federal grants are not catastrophic for us, It's catastrophic in other ways, but not luckily for the forest reserve. And of course, the environmental parts of our county are also going to be affected probably more directly. But we are here to reverse the years of discrimination and disparities that have existed in environmental access, and we're committed to doing that, even though we're not supposed to say diversity, equity, or inclusion anymore. So I'm honored to present in our Cook County leadership, our leader of the Department of Environment and Sustainability, that's Suzanne Malec-McKenna, and Fourth Reserve Superintendent Bianchi. Now, I feel a little bad about Adam having to do this since he's only been here, he's been here about a week. It hasn't been very long. But I do think that it's, we'll see how quick the study was, because I've got a lot of questions about what's going on with the Fourth Reserve. And by the way, we've been very, very pleased to have Matt join us. But Director Malec-McKenna brings more than 3 decades of experience in climate mitigation, resilience, regulatory efforts, ecological restoration, urban forest management, and industrial development. And under her guidance, our department has worked to foster healthy, resilient, and thriving communities by improving the quality of life, protecting our environment, promoting sustainability and environmental justice for all residents. Adam comes to us with 20 years in public lands and natural resources management service with the U.S. Forest Service, and the Forest Reserves of Cook County that he now directs and guides, now more than 70,000 acres of green space, is one of the oldest and largest forest reserves in the United States and a key component in the county's environmental justice and conservation efforts. Please welcome Director First Malec-McKenna. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Britton, and thanks to all of you for coming. I am so excited that we have such a great turnout from so many suburbs, leadership, activists. It speaks so highly to your interest, your engagement, your leadership around environmental action. It speaks to my boss here, Commissioner Britton, and he has been a really major player in the environment work for the county. Just do this really closely. Okay, I can do this. I can also yell without this, but be professional. Anyway, really thankful to Commissioner Britton, and also to see some people in this audience that I've worked with for many, many years. Beth Drucker with Go Green Wilmette, an organization that's been so active, and Ken Fuller. Like, seriously? Ken Fuller. I was Commissioner of Environment for the City of Chicago for 17 years. I think I worked with Ken that entire time. He's a stalwart activist, even from the government end of things, brought the technology, brought people together, really led efforts around ecological restoration in critical areas where there wasn't a lot of activity yet. So when I was coming up here and I saw the name, I'm like, could it be Ken Fuller? And it is, and that's perfect. So I'm so thankful to have him here today. So yes, I'm going to say a little bit about our department, and I look forward to answering questions and being part of this conversation. But I will say I am a little upset that I don't have one of those green shirts. So I've already told Adam I have an expectation to happen very quickly. And then I started a month after him in October, and I've been told by my boss that I have a year to say I'm on the honeymoon and I don't know all the answers yet. So I'm going to use it in case I get a tough question that I can't answer, but I'll do my best. So, my title represents how I operate. Looking at environment and equity brings us to a happy planet and happy communities. May sound a little trite, but I think it's absolutely important. And the Commissioner mentioned our federal government challenges. I have always felt that the action is regional. We have a lot to do here to contribute to our communities, to our environment, to the Great Lakes. Huge work right here that is going to help us with our our lives going forward. I just saw Catherine in the back too, with Center for Neighborhood Technology, who helped us with the environmental justice policy framework, so I wanted to note that too. So, we were once called the Department of Environmental Control. So pretty much we were out getting tickets, and believe it or not, accepting the fees and fines personally. Checks, cash, whatever it takes. That's the old school. In 2017, we became the Department of Environment and Sustainability, and now the question is, what's next? We're undergoing a strategic plan, resiliency strategy for the county, a brownfield strategy, and a whole range of things to really see what our next level of engagement can be. But we do have a regulatory aspect, which I'm going to get into, monitoring air quality, when we see ozone action days and those types of things that comes from our data, and a range of sustainability programs. Our air quality monitoring network has 12 sites across the region. Hey, Kent, air. I should talk this over with him. But we assess a whole range of particulate matter and air pollution statistics for Illinois EPA and US EPA. Our air division does about 8,000 inspections a year for everything from gas stations to metal platers, auto bodies, etc., to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. And if they're not, a citation is issued, and sometimes we go to court. But our goal is compliance. Our goal is for businesses to stay in business and operate to the very best of their ability, which is good for the environment and the bottom line. Our air quality monitoring network, I just wanted to show you the cool equipment because I'm learning about it and I think it's nifty. And then the air quality index. I just talk like
You can
this.
project, that's fine.
I think I can project. For some reason, this doesn't work for me.
Is everybody here?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just like do this if I mean, you might need to do that because that can be too loud. But anyway, air quality index, you've probably all seen these types of things that get us to ozone action days. A lot of times on your weather app, it now will tell you what your AQI is, which I think is pretty fascinating. Very important to our quality of life, obviously. We also oversee asbestos and demolition for all of Cook County, and when I say all of Cook County, the city of Chicago has their own inspection programs. We do collaborate, but we're responsible for 133 suburbs. Who knew that we had 133 suburbs in Cook County? Anybody? You did? Well, you should. But the bottom line, it's a lot of communities and very different communities. So that alone is a challenge and an opportunity for how we go about doing our work. And, you know, it's everything from the stuff on the floor to the pipes. We spend a lot of time and prioritize our efforts around commercial and institutional, mostly schools, first and foremost. That's our top priority. And our brownfields program. So we're going out and cleaning up abandoned industrial properties that have infrastructure in place. They have water, they have electricity, they might have gas lines. All those things are right there, ready for redevelopment if we get it to the point of being developable, which is by cleaning it up. And so, you know, we've been going across the region. We have about 85 projects that we've done in the past several years, total of about $11 million of cleanup. We really want to make sure that our region, our suburbs know about the programs we have because we'd love to partner with you. We'd love to have a big long list and really work through them and prioritize with you, especially when you have economic development projects, that this could really tip the scales to get a project going. And so a before and after, right? It could be anything. It can be factories. It can be Ford Mall, which we're helping take down right now. This is the end point, which is kind of nice, but I wanted to talk to Adam about it. So it's turf. How many know how great turf is for the ecology? Anybody? Anybody? Right. How about, while it's there, becoming a prairie, becoming a pollinator area? I mean, thousands of acres. What a cool opportunity, right? And they'll be developed over time, or some of them won't. And then we've got an extra open space that can gather stormwater, cool our urban heat islands, and then provide all these additional benefits, including beauty.
Solid waste and recycling, we also oversee that. So everything from our landscape waste transfer stations to construction and demolition debris, temporary rock crushing, you name it, we're out there. And we work to look at what all the businesses are doing. We sometimes have to follow businesses to make sure they're putting it where they need to put it. And sometimes that can happen, especially with vacant land. You can see illegal dumping happening. So we're actually looking at some of our ordinances and see how we can strengthen those. Our waste diversion program, we have two major programs that started that are underway. One is our household hazardous waste facility in the south suburbs. It goes along with the one I helped build in the city, and we'd love to look somewhere in the northern suburbs as well. And then we also have the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, or CHARM. Cutest name, which I could say I came up with it, but I didn't. What's cool about that program is we have CHARM on wheels. So we actually can bring the facility to you, hoping we can work on that with the commissioner and bring them out to this district. So you can bring your hard to recycle materials straight to us and we can get rid of it for you. Oftentimes actually recycling and doing things with it that you didn't think you could, because it's a strange material, but there are always uses. And our number one priority is, number one, reduce, but then reuse. So that's our goal. There's a new ordinance in town. It's called LEFA, Large Event Facilities. Anything over 3,500 seats now has to compost. So what an amazing thing. So back of house this year, nobody's going to be fully hitting that this year, I guarantee you. That's not fair, but it's true, and it's a hard thing to do. So back of house composting next year, front of house, which means people who come need to be disposing their materials into compost kind of bins. That's going to be a lot of education, but the opportunity also to do something with that waste as opposed to its methane generation, which is 2,000 times more deleterious than carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. That's a huge opportunity for this region. We also have a lot of regulatory aspects. I talked about inspections, but we also have our own ordinance. We speak to different legislation that's going on as well. Environmental justice, Commissioner Britton spoke about that. So this has been a long process from working with the Capstone group at University of Illinois Chicago all the way until January, where our commissioners reviewed and approved the environmental justice policy framework, which has a very detailed process. Again, Catherine was our leader from Center for Neighborhood Technology on the community aspect, really bringing together people, first of all, vetting and figuring out who could represent Cook County, and then active engagement for several years with them, and also community surveys, etc., to make sure that we're co-developing these policies to impact the communities that are impacted, right? And so involving community and then also involving our own departments and agencies is really critical. And we really see these departments and agencies as our partner in everything we do in our department. And we need to look at that in a more intentional way, because we should be partnering with Bureau of Economic Development and Department of Planning and Department of Transportation and Highways and Housing and Health, emergency management. All this work needs to be done together. And so the framework would not be surprising to you, the kinds of things that communities are looking for us to achieve and focus on, and that's indeed what the policy framework is doing. Our BRIGHT program is actually a pretty cool program. We work with 81 sites across the region, dry cleaners, metal platers, auto body shops, food processors, and we went in and helped these businesses switch out their equipment from dry cleaning to wet cleaning. So we're getting rid of PERC, we're getting rid of a range of chemicals. I called this project Manna from Heaven, because this is, I mean, groups got anywhere up to $300,000 to do work. That's not kind of money that small dry cleaners and other small businesses usually get. We're hoping to figure out a way to continue this program, because I really feel like not only does it have an impact on the surrounding community and the workers, but the energy efficiency and cost savings, the lack of pollution long term, are all really incredible opportunities. Electric vehicle charging stations, we're just finishing that program. Bureau of Asset Management is our partner. We're in 27 communities, putting in a total of like 68 charging stations. It was based on an assessment of where our EV charging deserts were, including multi-unit housing where you don't necessarily have that place where you can go and plug in. So we're very excited about that. Healthy Homes is another program we did with ARPA money, and we were able to spend about $30 million to go into homes and do everything from getting rid of asbestos to energy efficient utilities to one of my favorite things, which is working on the sewer lines to make sure that you're not having sewage backup during heavy rains, which we know is a huge problem, in addition to lead pipes for water. And climate resiliency. So this is going to be my final theme, because it's very, 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 very important. How important? Very, very important. So we talk about climate action, we talk about climate mitigation, but what are we doing to prepare our communities to be as resilient as they possibly can? We already have climate change here, we will have more. What are our forecasts? How do we address that? I learned something pretty quickly when I came on, because I always kept saying our region's the climate refuge. People are going to come from the east and the west coast, we've got the Great Lakes, etc. But are we a refuge if we're not ready? Are we a refuge if we don't have enough housing and businesses and flood protection and dealing with urban heat islands? And air pollution, our #1 air pollution issue for resiliency is, any ideas, any ideas? You might think trucks and trains, etc. It's the Canada wildfires, which will continue. And as we know, those are pretty intense. So those 3 issues need to be addressed across the region, and we're underway right now with the resiliency strategy that I'm looking forward to working with our commissioner on, and everybody else, and talk about what we need to do. This is a county-wide strategy. It looks at economic development, housing, our infrastructure, and a quality of life that we all want to see. And I think it's eminently possible with the creativity and the resources we have in this region. So, that's okay. This is what I want to end at. So I started with environmental control, environmental and sustainability to resilience. Who knows what our name will be after our strategic planning at the end of the year? I'll be talking to the commissioner to help us figure that out. But resiliency is one of the top priorities we need to be focusing on. You know, what is our relationship to and opportunities for making a climate resilient region, in addition to all the other things we do. And so we look forward to continuing to partner with all of you on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Suzanne, for that. I am a trial lawyer, I can project. I also wanted just to point out that, you know, we have such a tremendous advantage here in my district, the 14th, mostly because we have the commitment to all of these things that Suzanne was talking about. And one of those biggest commitments is not just our park districts, which we partner on with everything we do, not just with our townships and our local governments, but we have, for instance, the Botanic Garden, which is in my district, which does so much on social equity, bringing people up from various parts of the communities that don't get to be there that often. And the Farm in Ogden, I don't know if you know that provides food in more inner city areas and trying to bring people up to expose them to the tremendous advantages, particularly the Botanic Garden, which is not just for the folks up in this part of the county. Also, you know, we've committed now tens of millions of dollars of ARPA funding to our both resiliency, our environmental programs. You know, we're not going to get another $1 billion anytime soon from the federal government, so we're going to have to make do with what we have, but we have to prioritize the environmental part of this within the board, and that's my commitment as the commissioner for this district. So I just want to again thank Suzanne for coming up here. I'm now very pleased to have our superintendent of the Forest Preserves of Cook County, Bianchi.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. As the Commissioner said, I'm 8 months into the position here, so learning a ton. Coming from Colorado, so I'm brand new to the Chicagoland area, which has been fantastic. It's been a great opportunity for not only for my family, but myself also to learning different perspectives of all the great work that's happening out there in the conservation space. I've worked mainly in the West, and so it's been fantastic to come here to the Lake States, to the Chicagoland area, to see, you know, just how special. I mean, it's truly special every place I've worked. The understanding of having nature at scale, at 70,000 acres at scale, that's really intertwined amongst all of the development, skyscrapers, the interstates, you name it. This place is a great example of that. As you look around, right, you can see how special and needed this this acreage is for all the environmental ecosystem services it provides. And so one of the things I'm going to talk today a little bit is just about the equity piece the lens that we have at the Forest Preserves and our environmental justice work. We obviously do a lot more, but this is the lens that we do. We try to do all the work that we're doing, we see it through. And so I just want to call out a few things that we're proud of. So this is the mission of the Forest Preserves. We started in 1914, so a little over 100 years old, but I think it's really important to just talk about that. At that time, 1914, it was just the beginning really of that key conservation area and the startup of the Park Service and the U.S. Forest Service and others. And so the leaders, the civic leaders, to have that foresight to start setting these lands aside, is incredibly special. And I think the mission that they provided us in our Enabling Act, and I know it's probably hard to see, so I will read it, but I want to call out a couple things here. So it's to acquire, restore, and manage land for the purposes of protecting and preserving public open space with its natural wonders, significant prairies, forests, wetlands, rivers, streams, and other landscapes, with all of its associated wildlife in a natural state for the education, pleasure, and recreation of the public now and into the future. Key things there, right? Big ones, talking about the land, nature, and people. And you can't separate those. And that's, again, coming back to this whole theme of just where our landscape sits, right? Is everything's intertwined. You can't separate those two things. And that's what we really lean into here at the Forest Preserves, to try to find that and strike that balance. So a big piece is trying to increase our awareness that we're here to exist. I don't think people necessarily care what jurisdiction they're sitting on, but just this idea that nature is here and we offer a lot. So we partner with every little white dot on that screen there is a partner organization that we have. There's over 800 dots that you will see there on that screen. And you will notice that there seems to be, a bit of, it's sort of aggregating those couple spots that particularly are important for us in those areas that are on the south side of the city, as well as getting into the sort of southwest side of the county as well. We don't have a huge footprint in the city. We have the 70,000 acres, 4,000 acres roughly is actually within the city. The rest is all sort of kind of referred to as like the green emerald ring around the city. And so it's really important for us to be able to engage with organizations in other ways so that we can have our relevance, increase our awareness and our relevance within the city and a lot of these communities that may not get the same the equity piece of it, right? But and so we really lean into ways that we can partner with organizations and take the Forest Preserves to them instead of always trying to bring them out to the Forest Preserves. And you can see here for the World Resource Institute, it's a small little graphic here, right? But these are just the many benefits that these forests provide, and it's really those ecosystem services that we really lean into and try to help communities know the value of the Forest Preserves. We've been really trying to up our restoration efforts, especially since the referendum back in 2022. We are roughly around, and for those that are involved in restoration like Kent and others, it never ends. Once you start something, it's constant. And so it's not a one and done situation. And so we're about 18,000 acres of the 70 are in active restoration. Our goal by 2040 is to get to 30,000 acres. So it's a big goal for us, but ultimately, through the help of these organizations, our partners, and our volunteers, we really hope to continue to move that needle. So environmental investments, we've got a few here that we're really leaning into. That's our Southeast Land Acquisition Plan. So thankfully, the referendum gives us $7 million annually for land acquisition. They're not making more land, right? So we need to be able to be, when land becomes available that sort of meets a bunch of our priorities, we need to be able to jump on it and take the opportunity, because once it gets sold or developed, it's really challenging for us to sort of bring that and restore that back. So our Southeast Land Acquisition Plan really is to put an emphasis in that side of the county where we do not have large pieces of land in these EJ communities. Again, it's about creating equity across the entire community. The other piece is we're really looking at connectivity. for us, from an ecosystem standpoint, we want to see north, south, east, west, create connectivity amongst the forest preserves, so that we have the opportunity for wildlife and plant movement, but also for people movement, right? In our infrastructure, our bike trails, the amenities that we provide. So the Southeast Land Acquisition Plan is one we've been focusing on. Over the last couple of years, we've acquired just shy of 600 acres. So it's really hard acres that we're going after at the moment, because it's hard to sort of find the quality acres that we're looking for to continue to grow the forest preserves. Our grade infrastructure. We are working to really turn our fleet over as much as we can to electric. Everything from our garbage trucks all the way down to the equipment that we use, the chainsaws, the blowers, our paving equipment, you name it, everything we can to electrify it, we're doing that. And additionally, we're using a lot of propane in different ways, so really trying to get ourselves more in a sustainable way. Our buildings, same idea. We just built the Salt Creek Landscape Maintenance Office. That's our first net zero building that we're really, really proud of. And we're looking to continue to grow those as we are working toward investments, whether that's in our HVAC systems, at our general headquarters in Urban Forest, to looking at ways that we can get solar in a lot of our shop space to run all of our shop equipment off of solar. We hope that by 2035, we should be about 80% of our use should be offset. So we're continuing to work towards those goals as well for our green infrastructure. Waste management, I sort of mentioned our green fleet, our garbage trucks that we're moving to the fact that we've got a couple pictures of them. They've got, the back is dual. It does both recycling material and garbage. So it helps on the trips that we're making. And we're really trying to pilot something you may see out in the forest preserves, look a little bit differently with our garbage cans. Historically, we would just plop a garbage can right in the middle of the parking lot. What we're seeing, though, is that oftentimes that encourages what we refer to as fly dumping, people coming in and dumping all kinds of home waste, all the other things. So you'll see that we're making it a little harder, I think, on folks that really want to come use that space, being tactful for where the garbage cans are at, maybe pushed off the parking lots a little bit, to really encourage the folks that are recreating and using these spaces, their proper use of the garbage, pack in, pack out, not necessarily coming in just to do with home waste. All of our events now are required. We've got composting bins at all of the events as well that we either permit or conduct ourselves. Our bike plan collaboration. So I mentioned earlier, right, the way we're acquiring land, a big piece of that's about connectivity. We've got some big projects that you, I'm sure, in this area are familiar with, whether that's the Square Trail, the North Branch Trail. A big piece of us is the major Taylor Trail on the south side. So really trying to create that connectivity so that folks have the opportunity to get the forest preserves, maybe not always driving a vehicle. That helps our green infrastructure initiative, but also provides multimodal opportunities. And then our flood mitigation. Today is a great example. You go out into the forest preserves, you'll see it. It's working in action. Much of what the forest preserves provide is that flood, reduce that flood impact. And you'll see it. Sometimes it may reduce the ability to get out on trails and things, but I keep telling people it's doing its job. It's being a forest preserve. It's holding a lot of this water. The history of Cook County and our partnership also with MWRD in a lot of different ways, we're continuing to look to grow projects that both meet our goals as well as theirs. Again, our mission isn't necessarily flood mitigation or holding flood water, but I think we share a similar mission of wanting to ensure that we're creating opportunities for the people of Cook County to reduce impacts to them while simultaneously providing other amenities too. So we can look at this in a way that very much similar to this place that is intentionally holding water and still provides the nature and the amenities for the people. I went back too far here. Okay, our educational programs. We've got 6 nature centers spread out through the entire county. Last year alone, we held 2,400 different events that really are teaching people about conservation, about wellness, about the nature, the natural space, and how they can use it. We do everything from art to cultural events, you name it. The idea with our education programs is really trying to, again, allow for everybody's use, right? That's really important to us. We partner with some great organizations, whether it's our tribal partners. We have a really robust accessibility program trying to ensure that our amenities are accessible for everybody that may need wheelchairs or other devices. And so our educational programs really helped in that, and showing that we again, are looking to bring everybody to the forest preserves and for their enjoyment. Our Conservation at Home program is a partnership we have with the University of Illinois Extension, and that is actually going into homes and helping with things like gardening and helping with care of their own landscapes, and really looking at how these places also interconnect with our larger forest preserves in that natural space. We're also partnered with Neighborspace, which is a large organization also that's about creating neighborhood gardens throughout mainly the city of Chicago, but we are sort of expanding that throughout the county. And then our educated resources, we have our own building that's called the Sagawau Environmental Learning Center, and the whole purpose of that is to bring in teachers through our Green Teacher Network, and we teach them to be able to understand how they can create curriculum around conservation and nature. So we hold a lot of events there and teach everybody, and it's not only teachers, but having that Environmental Learning Center has been really fortunate for us to be able to get the message out and help spread the word. I mentioned some of those community groups. Language assistance policy, another piece is over 35% of Cook County speaks a different language. So really thinking about our signage, our publications, or even the media that we put out there. We've got a small advertising budget, but we're really focused on trying to be in different languages, on the radio, newspapers, again, trying to reach as many people as we can. We also have a language line, so everything from our police department to our laborers, our foresters, they all have the ability on either iPads or their phones to have a language line that's an immediate assistance. So anybody that's out in the forest preserves, they can provide immediate translation, whether it's a live person or a text sort of version. But that's been a game changer, especially for our police department, to be able to interact with folks as well. And then our Nature Express bus. So this bus it's served the last couple of years about 4,000 visitors across Cook County. And the idea with those buses, any organization throughout the county that wants to, it's a free bus service. We pick you up, either take you to the forest preserve, or to our friends at the garden, or at the zoo. And provide free tickets and parking at the zoo and at the garden as well. So again, there's just another way of trying to bring, get into communities and help them come out to the forest preserve or out to these other our partner institutions. And volunteer efforts. We've had 78,000 hours of volunteers just last year alone. That's nearly $3 million in staffing time just on volunteers. But the other things that I've been here, a big piece of what I've noticed, right, is that we have big spectrums of people. We have folks that may not even know the forest preserves exist, and then we have folks like Ken here that have been volunteering since the 1970s, and have moved to a place of complete affinity for these spaces. And so how do we continue to bring them along? And a big piece of that's our volunteer opportunities. We offer everything from being out there in the forest preserves, helping with our restoration, from running a chainsaw to having a drip torch, all the way to sitting in our nature centers and doing animal care at the nature centers, or volunteering in any of our events. We are really leaning into also youth. So if you're under 18 and you want to volunteer, there's opportunities for you all over the place too, whether that's through our partner organizations, or you can even come to our nature centers to volunteer and work with the animals or lead hikes, all of those things. And I forgot to mention all of these here, these are part of the environmental justice framework that has been worked on by the county. So that's why I picked out these, is that they're all tied back to that larger vision of our environmental justice framework. So that's kind of gives you a highlight of our continues. One of the things I forgot to mention too is just with our staffing, a big piece of what we do, really about bringing in folks that maybe not from areas that have always had the same opportunities, is our conservation corps. We have with helps of partners, the Friends of the Forest Preserves, Audubon, the Student Conservation Association, we have conservation crews that hire every single year that come from places that are usually, it's people that are part of the housing authority of the city and the county that we hired from. And we've been really successful. Roughly 43% of our resource management staff, so that's the staff that's doing the restoration work, running the chainsaws, 43% of the staff have come through the Conservation Corps program. So it's become a great pipeline for us to bring folks locally into full-time employment. Another big program for us, in partner with the city of Chicago, is a program that really works with adults that have barriers to employment, whether that's past incarceration and other things, that we bring them through, same idea, give them the skill sets, the trainings, give them the certifications, and then they work with us all year round too. So through Green Corps is that program, and so we have a lot of opportunities, again, of really trying to interact and meet people where they're at. Because at the end of the day, 70,000 acres, and all of this land is for everybody here. And so we look forward to continuing to work and improve things. One of the Commissioner Britton's ideas recently brought up to us too, talking about some of the federal challenges, is now all of our volunteer opportunities qualify for SNAP benefits, for the change to SNAP recently. So now everybody that does come in and that wishes to, we do have the authority to sign off to meet their SNAP requirements. So we're continuing to work really hard, I think, to again, provide opportunities for the members of the public. So thank you for having
me. So I think what we're just going to do in the time we have left, I'm just going to open it up to questions and just stand up and say it nice and loud, and I think we'll be able to hear it for either Suzanne or for Adam. So anybody have any questions before I have to do it myself? Anybody? Well, I'll start it off. No, go ahead.
I have a question. I noticed on one of the slides of the geography here, there was a blue stretch that we're in right now, kind of at the Continental Divide, right? There's just lanes over there that go. And what I'm really interested in, I saw the reference to bike things, transportation, or no, I think you used the word transit. And I noticed it was not in the sort of mission statement. It was education. And I kind of understand the concern, because you don't want to put in, let's make bridges for cars and trucks and all that. You don't want that. But the map shows north-south lineage, really good at following the rivers. What about using some of our east-west, some of our forest reserves that cut through the east-west, maybe adjacent, but inside the highways? And it doesn't have to be necessarily asphalt, but like, for instance, Oakton College, right over there. There's this effort I know on the north side of the street. But and others across, we need east-west conveyances for that kind of alternate things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because that has been our focus, is the north-south, right? Because that is the natural, easy way, following from an aesthetic piece being along the river. But you're right, it is more challenging for us to go east to west. But we are always trying to connect. That it may not be as visible in the way that we're sort of checkerboarded with the properties, but that is still part of the plan. That's still our emphasis, is creating that connectivity. There are certain locations that are challenging. We're working with 135 municipalities to try to figure out, and land ownership, how we can get connectivity between things. But ultimately, that is our goal, is that connectivity east, west, north, south. It's just the fact that we have as much land on the north-south pieces, so it has been maybe the easier avenue for us to go north-south, knowing that we have the ability to from the land ownership. But absolutely, that is a goal for us, is to continue connectivity.
And I'm hoping that, one thing I get the sense from this group, if nothing else, is that we have such great partnerships between state, not so much federal, but from state and local municipalities and the forest reserves, and our Department of Transportation and Highways is just as committed as our departments that are here to making sure that we get that done. And so, yes, I mean, we try our best within the limits of our ability to balance our budget and not raise our taxes. That's a goal. But obviously the challenges exist. But it's a commitment from all of the different stakeholders, and they all work together remarkably well. Oh, and I think I saw, did Bill Casey show up? Bill Casey is the president of the Glenview Park District. I wanted to welcome Bill. Thank you for being here today. Because he actually flew the he's retired. He flew his plane that I took to London once. It was pretty cool. Thanks, Bill. So any other additional questions? Hank?
One of the issues that relates to Joe's question about transit and a lot of things is municipalities. I think we really need to think about the green groups as our partners because municipalities aren't always responsive to some of these concerns. They have a lot of concerns too. For example, bike plan in Glenview, my experience has been that they're only going to put any money in the bike plan if there's a grant that they can match or whatever. That's kind of how they deal with environmental stuff too. So being able to, actually Scott can speak to this even better, but being able to integrate with the municipalities and the sustainability staff that are slowly getting in place would be a huge positive step that would benefit all of us. And the only way I see to do it is through advocacy with the green groups and as individual citizens.
Have you had a lot of
Well, it's a great, thank you for bringing that up. So part of our work, which is changing, is we're developing a program policy and communications group. We've been very heavily involved in kind of the regulatory frame of things, general sustainability, everything from the solid waste plan to the clean energy plan. But a big missing piece, I think, and our staff agrees, is that closer relationship with the municipalities. So we're going to have a total of 4 staff, but we think whether it's through the councils of government or directly with municipal leadership, we would love to come out and talk about the things we're doing, but also talk about that connectivity. I also think the regional transit bill, which you probably are all aware of, that's going to be a huge opportunity. The Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning and all the transit agencies to kind of bring it together. But I think it behooves us to have a more active communication and connection to the municipalities, including the community groups. So you're going to see that in the next year or so.
And I think the advocacy has made a big difference. When I first started as a trustee, I couldn't get anybody to listen to me about either environmental or sustainability or bike paths or anything else. At least people are listening now. That doesn't necessarily mean that things happen. And every municipality that I've noticed, and those who are municipal government folks can probably back me up, every municipality in my district has a different personality. And it's not just the leadership, it's the communities. And they all, there's no one-stop shop here. We have to be able to coordinate, but I think the Go Green groups and their advocacy at the local level was what would make a difference in making sure these things happen. And I think it's got to be from the bottom up, not from the top down.
I mean, this Twins River Trail is a good example. The communities and the municipalities we have to work through to get through that. I mean, that didn't come from just the Forest Service. That was really driven through local municipalities wanting that, right? And when you have that support, and you have that social license, I gotta tell you, it's much easier to get that momentum and movement, thinking about it from a fiscal budget, going after the grants, all of the things to kind of keep moving there. And there's some, municipalities are doing great things. I just came over to Elk Grove and building a brand new bike path bridge over by the elk enclosure over there. They're funding the entire thing, right? So it's there's a lot of municipalities that are really forward-thinking and doing some great things to help create connectivity here. But you're absolutely right. It does start from a lot of the advocacy work.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. Hank would know about this. When I first started, there's no way the village of Glenview would have bought the Signoy property and transformed it into green space and then transferring it to the Park District at some point. I mean, can you believe that happened? I still can't believe that happened. But those are the kinds of things that have happened, and the changes that have happened within our municipalities, I think, are huge. And we're going to continue to work for those things as well. Right.
I was wondering if either of you see any opportunities in the way to shift the burden that environmental justice communities have, are typically on the south and west sides of the county and the city, to sharing that burden across to our district up here, because we know that just like the transit lines, like the rail lines, the freight lines, those are all on the south side. There's one that runs through here. That's not a secret. So what are ways that help shift and share the burden so that it's not concentrated on the south and west side of the county?
Great question.
That's a tough one too.
Yeah, it's tough, but not impossible. So it really does connect back to community engagement and municipal engagement. So if we're developing a resiliency strategy, for instance, we're going to need perhaps less involvement from our department in certain suburbs than in others, right? So there's a resource sharing aspect of it. There's a learning strategy aspect of it. And a collaborative effort. If you think about resiliency and flooding, or urban heat islands, or air pollution, that's a region-wide effort. I think by collaborating between the suburbs, kind of in all directions, you're going to actually see that it has to be focused in certain areas because of the urban. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for community sharing. I think the environmental justice policy framework kind of lays a lot of that out. But I also don't want to forget that every community has challenges, right? And we need to make sure they're all addressed. And I think if we look at the region as a region, we're going to be able to, I think, serve the communities that are most disproportionately impacted through that kind of, it's the mindset, in addition to the resource development, in addition to the grants that we pursue, et cetera.
My question about electricity is we are going more to electricity or being independent. I understand that you're making individual buildings, very sustainable and by themselves. Are you doing anything to address like a region or Cook County, or because I know ComEd owns most of the utilities, not all of them, and they don't want to give you any money for sustainable projects. That's what it's to work with, so I know that. But are you doing anything, or can you do anything to make it the cost lower to us and to go out and make our individual electricity bills lower besides just having our own batteries and net metering and things like that?
I can speak to that, and because I'm new, I'm allowing myself to pull this one up because it was actually prepped. So we do have an overall kind of clean energy plan for Cook County, first starting with our own home, and then thinking about across the region. And so part of that is obviously solar and kind of the, if you will, the low-hanging fruit. So Cook County itself has met its emission targets 7 years ahead of time. And that is because of everything from solar installation on our courthouses to lighting for 800,000 square feet in Cook County Jail, to also our purchasing, and we're one of the major investors in the Double Black Diamond Solar Farm in Springfield. And now the question is, how do you take that out into the community? While we don't personally, like the city of Chicago, I was responsible for the utility franchises. We don't have that in Cook County because there's 133 suburbs. So I think this is where we have the opportunity to work collaboratively to leverage not only purchasing power but investments. And as you came from Cook County, or ComEd, you know that between them and Peoples and others, they now have to spend about $400 million a year just in our region around energy efficiency, as well as reducing utility costs. So I think it's a combination of we need to take care of our own house first, and now as part of our regional resiliency strategy, utility costs is paramount because we've seen it go up quite a bit lately, especially when you look at data centers and a range of other things. So I think that's our next frontier.
Are you looking at a time frame here, or is this
I will say that's part of our strategy for the next couple of years, to sit down. And again, since we have so many great municipal leaders here, I will lean upon you and beg of you to help us figure out how to have kind of network conversations amongst the municipalities to determine how best to leverage those resources.
We probably have time for one more.
Can you address the forest preserve dark skies policy? And also whether there's any carryover effect to Cook County's permitting department for businesses in unincorporated Cook County?
So to make sure I kind of track and follow which we got the second part of the question. I mean, our dark skies policy it is something that we've continued to work on, and I'll say it from my past life, it is really hard to get certified from a dark policy standpoint. And for us to have that in the Palos area is pretty unique. fact that we continue to maintain those certifications and have that so close to, you know, being the second largest county in the United States, right? That we were able to do that. We would like to expand our dark sky policy throughout the preserves and continue to grow and find opportunities. The challenge is obviously as we close the preserves also every evening, and that's hosted how we're operating and allowing to ensure safety and all the other pieces. And so we want to continue to build on those certifications and provide guided hikes and opportunities to get out to the forest preserves at nighttime. But it is sort of a challenge that we have there. And you have to forgive me, maybe I'm not quite understanding on the permitted side of
I
things.
think that's probably my direction, about unincorporated properties.
Yeah, some of them are terribly, terribly overlit.
Yeah, so I'm learning about that whole concept. You know, the unincorporated communities are very different because they don't have necessarily a municipal structure. We actually, in our department, instead of municipalities providing the permits and then we sign off and do our own, we're everything. Our Bureau of Economic Development does the zoning. So it's very tricky, and I'm just starting. Do you have an idea of how much of our property is unincorporated?
You mean in acreage?
Maybe people
Or percentage?
population.
Oh, it's a relatively small, it's in the 10 or 15% range.
Yeah.
So it's not that large. The problem is, other than having lights everywhere, have you noticed that there's a cannabis store on every unincorporated part of it? Certainly in Columbia.
Or gambling.
Or gambling.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's
that's
really
right,
true.
there's two of those. I'd forgotten, yeah. So I guess the bottom line is, I do believe that this has actually spurred a thought. I never really thought about some of the things that we do within Incorporated because obviously the building codes are different, the standards are different, the infrastructure is different, and often much more lax than you're going to get in the municipalities, which is why I was tasked 8 years ago with annexing all of the unincorporated areas in Cook County into the areas that surround them. I have not been terribly successful in getting that done because people don't want to be annexed. They want to stay in unincorporated Cook County. I don't get it, but that's what they want. And so, and unless they agree, we can't do anything about it. So I do think, though, that I think some of the code things are things we can talk about, and that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about maybe doing more with that. You know, there's a lot of pushback on both the gambling and the cannabis stuff because those people have a lot of lobbyists, a lot of money.
Yep.
But I do think that there's something we need to do. And maybe for my next 4 years, God willing, I might be able to do something about that. So we'll see what happens. Okay? All right, and I just want to say, thank you all so much for being here. This was a tremendous success. I'm very much engaged with all of the stakeholders in this room, many of whom I know very well, and I want to thank you for being such great partners with me and with the Forest Reserve and with our Department of Sustainability. And thank you, Suzanne and Adam, for being